My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and welcome to Dundee, where things are exciting this afternoon. You are lucky enough to be here at 2 o'clock on the last Monday of the month, and we all know what that means. It's time for the Practice Master Virtual User Group Meeting. Now, what that means is that we are here to talk about Practice Master, but before we do that, let me give you a little bit of housekeeping here. Now, normally at a live event, this would be where we show you where the bathrooms are. Here we're going to show you how to use your GoToWebinar control panel, and this is what it looks like. If you are seeing this on your screen, that means you have not pressed this little button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, because if you had, that would cause this to slide off the right-hand side of your screen, and this button that looks now like an arrow pointing to the right would all of a sudden look like an arrow pointing to the left. And the only reason you would then click that again was if you had a question and you were shy. If you're shy and you want to type your question to have Patty, our humble and new moderator, read your question, then you would bring this back into focus, type your question here. Do not forget to hit send. When Patty recognizes or sees that you have a question, she will wait for an opportune time to interrupt Mary Jo or myself. She will ask your question on your behalf, and then we will carry on. Now, while we're answering your question, if you find that you have follow-up questions, or maybe we're headed down the wrong path and we're not answering the question you intended to ask, you just keep typing questions here. Keep remembering to hit send. Patty will keep intervening on your behalf, and will continue to ask your follow-up questions. Now, if you're not feeling shy, you don't need to bring this thing back onto your screen, because there's a button here that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upwards in front of it, and if you click on that button, you will be raising your hand. Patty will once again recognize that you have raised your hand. She will once again interrupt Mary Jo or myself at the opportune time, but instead of asking your question, she will unmute you and she'll let you ask your own question. Now, that channel of communication will remain open until we are done answering your question. So if we head down the wrong path, or you have follow-up questions, you just talk, and we'll have a two-way conversation as we answer your question. So today we are talking about eNote and eNotify. Mary Jo will show you those features of Practice Master that are available in Platinum Practice Master. I'm hinting that Mary Jo should remind you of that when, oh, she's already got it written down. And I am going to talk about workflows, which are in all versions of Practice Master, and allow you to automate certain things and have certain things happen automatically. So without further ado, I'm going to press this button and this button and that button, and we're going to land here in Practice Master, where Mary Jo is going to talk to you about eNote and eNotify.
Okay, well, as Paul has said, this feature is available in Platinum only. If you do not have Platinum, you probably still see this little chat balloon here up here. That is the eNote feature. I'm going to tell you the difference between eNote and eNotify and how to use both of those. So if I were, I guess let's say that the eNote feature is like an inter-office chat. You can send messages to anybody about anything that you want. It's a quick note that you can just click on, and you can say who you want it to. This is just some of my ones that I had before, or just sample ones. I'm going to dismiss it, but I can just say new. I can say who I want to go to. My list of all the users is here. So being in sample data, I could just say I want to send this to Dan, and I can just do a test. This is just an eNote. I can send it off. Dan, the next time he's looking at his computer, see he's offline, he's not signed in, but the next time he logs into Practice Master, he's going to see my little message that I sent him. Hey, do you want to go to lunch, Dan? Whatever that is. It can be anything that you want to send back and forth. You do have the ability to manage your settings, so there's some preferences over here for eNotes. You can decide whether or not you want to disable the eNote Practice Master startup. You can have it always on top. You can minimize it to the tray. You can have it pop up for new eNotes, or you can just have a little balloon that comes up over here. There's all kinds of things. You can even have a sound, ding or something that you want to notify you that you have a new eNote available to read. If, like, I just sent an eNote to Dan, it popped right up right away that said he's not on Practice Master right now, but the next time he opens it, he will get my message. So eNotes can go back and forth across the office to whoever you want. You also can save those, and you can look at your list of eNotes. So if you open the list, right now I'm looking at my received. Over here in Quick Clicks, I have several different options for my eNotes. I could see all of my eNotes, either to or from to whoever I've sent them to. I can just see all of my unread eNotes. I can see my received, my sent. If I have manager permissions, I can also see all the eNotes for all users back and forth. I can see deleted eNotes, and I can see a specific user's eNotes and go in and just check those. Now again, some of these require manager permission, so you have to be allowed to be able to do that or have rights to do it. So you can lock these eNotes down a little bit so not everybody's reading everybody's messages throughout the office. That is available here. You can get into, if I go back to my all my eNotes, if I wanted to look at this, I can always come in. If I've dismissed one earlier because I was busy and I didn't have time to read it, I can just go to my list, bring it up, and I can look at what Ron has sent to Dan here. I can reply. I can then go ahead and reply to all. If there was this, you can do eNotes to more than one person. I can even forward an eNote to somebody else. So maybe it's a note to me that I need to review, and then I want to send it on to get somebody else's opinion. I can forward that on. I can also create a journal note, a record from an eNote. So I could turn this into a journal note underneath a client. I could calendar from this eNote. So if somebody sent me something, and it could be personal or otherwise, and I can show you, we'll talk about eNotify as well, which would also be a feature that you can do this with. And then fee record, I could bill for an eNote. If I spent some time discussing a client internally with other staff, I could then turn this into a fee entry and bill the client for that time, right from my eNote. You can also show related records, and you can mark as unread or you can mark as read. So if you get through there, you can do that. So there's a whole lot of things here with eNotes that it can be very useful and helpful. Now the difference in that and in eNotify, I'm going to go into the calendar record here for a minute. And let's say that this outside conference with John Williams also affects somebody else, and I want to notify them about this record. Or maybe I want to just ask them, is this still going on? If this were a deposition or something, is this still in effect? Or did that get canceled? What happened? Well, if I come over here to my eNote, I'm going to open the record here. And over here on my eNotify, my Quick Clicks, if I click eNotify, it's going to start an eNote, but it's also going to put a link in the eNote to this particular calendar record. So if I wanted to ask Ron, it's assuming because it's Ron's calendar entry that I'm going to ask him, but I could have this go to the legal assistant, the receptionist, whoever's doing my scheduling, and I can say, is this still going to take place, or has this been canceled? I can type my note right here, and then they can see what I am referring to right here below as to which record I'm doing. So if I send this to Ron, he's going to get this. I'm Ron, so I'm logged in here. I get this little note, and I can click on the linked calendar record to see exactly this record and say, nope, it's canceled, or no, it's been moved, or yes, that we are still meeting for that particular thing. So I have a copy of everything that I'm trying to ask them about right inside the eNote. So it's still an eNote. I'm still sending it the same way, but now I've got that linked record involved. Something else that is really nice is, let's say that I am under, let's go to Michael Jensen. I think we use him a lot. Michael Larson. Yep, and so I'm going to go into the emails. And so here I've got some emails that have been saved underneath Mr. Jensen, or Mr. Larson. I get them all confused. This sample data, I'll tell you. But I'm going to open this eNote, or this email, and I'm going to look at this email, and I'm going to say, well, you know, I want to see if so-and-so, I want them to review this as well, or I want to see get somebody else's opinion. I want to send this email to someone else without having to actually send the email. I don't want them to have to go scroll through their email box and say, refer to such and such an email. I've got it saved as a journal record, so I'm just going to eNotify, and I can pick who I want to eNotify, and we'll just do Dan. And I'll send this to him, and again, he's going to get that record with that link to this email, so he can just open the email, review it right there without having to go out to Outlook and search for it, and he can see exactly my question that I had on that particular email. So very useful information. Now, something else that is really cool is you can automate this feature. You can automatically have it send an eNote using a workflow. And I understand Paul is going to be talking about workflows here in just a moment, and he can actually show you how you can have that all be automated. As soon as something gets eNotified, it can, do other things. So, or you can automatically say, I did this, so eNotify somebody. So that makes it real easy to attach a record. It can be a client record. Let's say that you have your legal assistant open a new case for someone. They can actually go into the client and they can choose a client and they can say eNotify whoever, the billing person, whoever needs to know that there's a new matter that's been opened, and they can say, here's the matter, I just opened this one, can you do the billing part of it? There's all kinds of things that you can use that eNotify for, so very helpful feature. Any questions on that, or? There are no questions, Mary Jo. Okay, thanks, Patty. Go ahead.
I'm very excited, Patty, to know that she now is somebody who can fill in for her. And I should have been unmuted when I said, yay, it's Patty, and Leanne will be excited to know that we now have a second moderator, and Leanne doesn't have to be the sole moderator at Attorney Computer Systems, so welcome, Patty. Mary Jo alluded to the fact that we can automate eNotifies and eNotes with workflows. We can use them as part of a workflow to inform somebody that something has happened. And we can even do it in such a way that the person that's caused that workflow to fire, if you will, that'll make sense in a second, doesn't even know that this note is being sent to somebody else. So a lot of times we're using it to say, hey, this person did something that they shouldn't have. You might want to go check on this record because they, in the example I'll do in just a second, we'll create one that if somebody creates a fee entry for more than 10 hours, maybe we should eNotify the billing clerk to let them know they should probably look into that. But that's what workflows do. Workflows automate things, and they make it easy to chain certain events together with other events. Now, there are two types of workflows. There are those that a user simply activates. It says, hey, I want to do this, and so they click on a link and bam, that thing happens. Or there are workflows that are triggered by other things happening. And the example that I just gave is if somebody creates a fee record with hours equal to 10 or more, it should eNotify the billing administrator that this is probably an error and they should look into it. Maybe they meant to put 1.2 and they actually put 12. So let's first look at a user-activated eNote. User-activated workflow. And that's very simple to explain. Let's say we have a client on the screen. We are in the client file. And Michael Larson is a client for the Larson versus Bell Workers' Comp case. And we want to start a letter to that client. I have created well, actually, this is a sample workflow, but someone has created a workflow that works over here by simply clicking on this and saying OK, and it will automatically start a letter to the client. This is using, of course, the document assembly capability within Practice Master. So now we all know, or maybe we all know, let me get out of Word again, that we can simply highlight the client and click on Word document assembly and choose the client and then pick the document. But in order to make it easier for people that are operating Practice Master, we've created a workflow that simply allows us to highlight a client, click this, say OK, and bam, it goes ahead and chooses the right letter and does everything else that's associated with it and gets us into Word with that letter on the screen. So that's a very simple example of a user-activated workflow that is simply something that is activated because a user clicks on a link. But I gave you an example of a different workflow. Mary Jo, did we have another automated workflow? Yeah, there was one, but I'm not remembering, but that's all right. We're going to create one right now. So let's say we want to create a workflow that when somebody adds a fee in Practice Master and it is for more than 10 hours, we want to inform Ron, because Ron is the billing attorney, the supervising attorney over all billing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the fee file, and I'm going to go to workflow, and I'm going to manage workflows, and I'm going to create a new workflow, and I'm going to call it fee over 10 hours. It's not inactive. It is done when a record is added or changed, and I want it done for every fee record where hours is greater than 10. And what do I want to happen? Well, first off, I'm going to eNotify. First off, let me explain that this is the part of the screen where you tell it what to do it on, and this is the part of the screen where you tell it what to do. So anytime a record's added or changed, we don't care about deleted, because if it was deleted, it's gone anyways. With hours greater than 10, we want this to happen. What do we want to happen? These are the things that can happen. We can launch a program outside of Practice Master. We can launch a Practice Master program. We can run a certain report. We can display a message. We can start or send an eNote. That's what we're going to do in just a second. We can start an email. We can start document assembly. We can process a calendar plan template, or we can change a record. We can also create a new record. So we can either change the record. Let's say somebody entered a fee greater than 10 and we wanted to automatically change it to 1. We could change that record. Or if somebody creates a fee greater than 10, we want to create a new record that, maybe a journal record. We don't. We want to start or send an eNote. To who? Ron. I have to put it in quotes. We're not going to go into why. If you want to learn more about this, there's plenty of ways to do that. We're just kind of giving you the feel for what's going on here. This fee record was created for 10 or more hours. We're going to eNotify, which means we're going to send the corresponding record, and we're going to automatically send. That's a silent send. In other words, when I, the user, creates a fee entry for 11 hours, it's not going to let me know that it's sending this eNotify to Ron. It's just going to do it. Now, we'll see it right away because we are Ron, but we don't let that get in the way. This is what we're doing it for. This is what we're doing. It is there. I'm going to go create a fee entry for Mr. Larson by clicking on New. And we'll just make it say that we had a telephone conference. And I meant to put in 1.2 hours, but I put in 12 with Paul. Bam. And what happens, I told it to prompt before running, so I'll say yes, and then I'll go explain what that means. What happens is this eNotify is automatically sent to Ron that says this fee record was created for 10 or more hours. Here's the client. Here's the date. Here's the description, and I can actually click this link, and bam, there's the transaction. And if I were the billing administrator and I got this, I would get Ron on the phone, or whoever, Paula Merton, I guess, is who entered the time. And I'd say, hey, did you mean to put 1.2 hours? And she'd say, yeah, why? What did I do? I put 12? Oh, change that. And I could just change this right here, have it recalculate the amounts, and I could save it, and bam, I, as the administrator, have received an eNotify, acted on it, all automatically. Now, very quickly, let's close this up. Let's go back into the fee over 10 hours. We're going to go back to manage. A couple things I did wrong. I left user activated on, which meant it also showed up over there. This isn't the kind of workflow that you want a user to click and send this eNotify. You just want it to happen when something happens. So I should have unchecked that and made it only for add or changed. And also, I left the prompt before running checked. So really, we wanted this to happen kind of silently in the background so that the user didn't know that Big Brother is watching and making sure they don't put in entries for more than 10 hours. But we didn't do that effectively because we forgot to uncheck that. So now I'm going to save that. And very quickly, I'm going to rerun it. I'm going to add another fee entry. That Paula Martin, she's always putting in transactions for greater than 10 hours. And it's another conference with Paul, and now when it happens, bam, the only reason you see this is because I'm logged in as Ron. So normally I wouldn't be logged in as Ron, and then sending the eNotify wouldn't be going to the same person.
And Paul, I'm just going to add just real quick that, Paul said that this can send this automatically and do this behind the scenes, but this might also be, in our example, a workflow that you do want the user to know right away so that they can change it. You might not want to be bugging your administrator. This is just an example,
yeah,
but this
exactly.
could be something that could even just pop a message and say, hey, you just entered a time entry greater than 10 hours. Did you mean to do that? If not, go change your entry so that they can change it themselves. But just all these different possibilities that you can do with these workflows. I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah,
now.
You're doing the same thing.
Yeah, so go ahead.
And that's very, very much true. If I go back in here and edit this, these are all the things that I could be doing. I can create a new record and change a record. That gets into some very advanced workflows. I can process a calendar plan template. I can start document assembly. I can start an email. I can display a message, like Mary Jo said. Instead of sending an eNote to the billing administrator, maybe I display a message that says, did you really mean to do that? And then we're not bothering the billing administrator. Lots of logic can be built in here. Maybe you have 30 attorneys, and for the most part, they get that message and they remember and they fix it. But you have one that isn't, let's say, isn't capable of fixing it for whatever reason. So we could even build logic into the workflow that says, well, if it's Bill, send the message to Betty Lou and she'll fix it. If it's anybody else, display the message. So we can have workflows that do different things for different peoples or different situations. I have a client that is an insurance defense firm. They have a lot of insurance companies with different requirements as to when they report on a pretrial, with a pretrial report. So in that firm, there are workflows that will generate a task to prepare a pretrial summary at 90 days, at 120 days, at 180 days, at 60 days. And depending on the client that the trial has just been entered into the calendar for, the appropriate workflow will fire, and that schedule will be, that task will be put in the schedule at the appropriate interval. So there's a lot of power here. We have one client that just hired us to do workflows that push an entire SBA loan from start to finish through the firm, with everything being tracked and workflows to make sure that every date is followed up on and that every bit of information that needs to be obtained from all the borrowers, for all the property, from all the co-borrowers, for all the collateral, for everything is done. So we can get very, very complex with workflows, or you can develop some very simple ones like we've just given here as an example. Certainly not a workflow, advanced workflow session, but I think it gives you an idea of what can be done and what the capabilities are. Of course, if you need help, there are all sorts of resources, including certain other videos on our site. There's some resources on SCI's site. And when all else fails, we're there to answer your questions and actually help you write workflows if that's what you'd like. Do we have any questions, Patty?
There are no questions, Paul.
Wow, did you see how quickly she got in there and said there are no questions? Patty, you've really picked this up well. I think maybe we should make you the moderator for every virtual user group meeting. Okay, a couple bits of housekeeping here. Let me cancel out of here. What are we doing next month in the Practice Master Virtual User Group meeting? We are talking about conflict of interest searching best practices. We get this question a lot. What's the best way to search for conflicts in Practice Master? Well, I have my opinions, so I will share them with you. Mary Jo is going to talk about holiday management. There are holidays built into Practice Master, but did you know you can edit the holiday list and you can add your own holidays if you're going to be closing on a certain day? Certain firms observe certain holidays that other firms don't, or they have office-related, holidays. So you can edit those and you can change that. Mary Jo is going to show us how. I want to mention, for those of you that are still on version 15 of Practice Master or tabs or anything, people have asked when will they be getting rid of support for version 15, and we now know. June 1st of 2015. June 1st of 2015 is when version 15 will be sunsetted, so we're going to be announcing that at the end of every virtual user group meeting until June 1st of 2015. So if you have version 15 or and are worried about the fact that your ability to update the software or your ability to get support will be hindered after the sunsetting, call us and we can tell you what your options are. One last thing, we have a website with all of this content. So if you go to our website and go under Virtual User Group Meetings, you will find tabs 3, Practice Master and World Docs. If we, for instance, click on Practice Master, you will find the place to register for the next session, which is going on right now, or recorded versions, if you scroll down, of every one that we have recorded since we started recording them, and that is a lot of content. And just in case you're curious, we also have coffee pot webinars that we give every month on a certain product or feature of a product, giving demonstrations of how those things work. Mary Jo has her own eBytes video series of short little 3-4 minute videos, how to do this, did you know you could do that? And we have the Paul and Mary Jo show. So a lot of content here. Feel free to take advantage of it. And until next month, we will see you again next month. Until then, have a good afternoon, a good week, and a good month. Bye-bye, everybody.